to you, Bridget. So thank you.
Thank you so very much. All right, hello everyone. From my little home here in the woods to your home, wherever that might be. It's so great that we have this technology and this possibility of connecting in this way and sharing during these times. And awesome that we have an organization like CCHE here to organize this and set it all up and to be offering it to everyone for free. Wow, very cool, right? The silver lining in all of this. So welcome to class. We're going to be joining tonight and then tomorrow night talking about self-care and practices that you can incorporate into your everyday life to elevate your life and to prioritize yourself and your wellness, which seems especially important during these times, but is always important for sure. So my name is Bridget Neese. For those of you that may not know me, I own Ancient Traditions Healing here in downtown Grand Marais. I do massage and body work. I am a master herbalist and also offer energy work and breath work, yoga, kind of a variety of healing practices. I've been exploring healing modalities for probably the last 25 years of my life. And so putting together a class like this where I get to kind of pull bits and pieces from all of the wisdom teachings and experiences I've had is always kind of fun. It's like taking a little stroll down memory lane of all the great practices that I've come across in life. Let's see here. Self-care, right? It's kind of seems like a buzzword right now or even in the last several years, but truly it's not a new concept at all. Dating back as far as the Egyptians, there's evidence, or early Egyptians, right? There's evidence of self-care practices where they were infusing oils with different plants and different minerals and doing self-massage and referring to this act of caring for self. So certainly it's a buzzword right now, but not a new practice at all, but as important today as ever, for sure. You know, in my practice, I'm always talking to people about ways that they can take practices home to care for self. And the two, I think, biggest things that I hear people say is that there's just not enough hours in the day, or finances, perhaps, are kind of the two big stumbling blocks that I commonly hear people refer to when talking about self-care. And not to minimize that we do have very busy lives and that time can be an issue, and certainly not to minimize your financial situation in any way. But, you know, out of curiosity, I always just like to kind of reflect back to people, you know, is it time and finances that are truly the issue? So imagine that you had all the time in the world and lots of finances. Then what would be the next thing that would be your stumbling block, so to speak, to taking care of self? And what I find when we start kind of exploring it in this way is that, and what we often come across is that the stumbling blocks to self-care often just come down to us prioritizing ourselves. In our culture, I would say that, you know, putting others before ourselves is something that has been rewarded. And within our culture, especially like in my mother's generation, putting your family, your work, your house before yourself was something that was taught and embraced by many. So for some of us, it may be about time, it may be about money, but it might also be about unlearning and letting go of some of those old patterns and those old belief systems. So if you're finding yourself coming up against some resistance to some of these practices, maybe they just don't align with you. Maybe it's just not a form of self-care that you feel called to. Thankfully, I'll be presenting lots and lots of ideas, so hopefully everyone will find something that resonates with them. But if you are finding that resistance, I think it's a great opportunity to kind of get quiet and get curious and explore what your beliefs around self-care and what your beliefs around prioritizing yourself and your wellness might be, what they might look like, okay? All right. So we're going to talk a lot about mindfulness, and within this idea of self-care for everyday healing, I just want to talk briefly about the correlation between mindfulness, self-care, and health. There's been lots of research that's happened in the last 5 or so years. Really interesting studies that have been done that talk about the connection between mindfulness, self-care, psychological health, life satisfaction, vitality, and our ability to emotionally regulate. And what they're finding is that people who practice mindfulness or forms of self-care have decreased levels of stress, higher brain function, increased immune function, which is particularly important and is the buzzword these days, a lower heart rate, increased awareness, focus, clarity, even memory, feelings of connection with others, that idea of shared humanity. And it also helps to build resilience, which is why I feel like this is so very important during these times. I feel like whenever our current situation first came about, everybody sort of went into their patterns of fight or flight, self-care, get through. And now as the weeks have kind of gone on, and that's maybe not working so well for everyone anymore, we're having to learn or unlearn or relearn new ways of taking care of ourselves. And long-term, that's talking about our resilience, our ability to not only endure, but to thrive in situations that continue to challenge us. And these acts of mindfulness, bringing the sacred into everyday life and prioritizing your wellness, all help to build that resilience along with your immune function. Okay. The other thing I want to say about this is I'm going to be presenting lots and lots of ideas. And in no way am I expecting you to embrace and integrate all of these into your life. There's no magic formula. There's no cookie cutter. This is what self-care should look like. For me, it's more about how does it feel? It should feel joyous. It should make you feel good. And what that's going to look like is going to be really different for everybody. I can think of examples of self-care that people do that they really love, that they really enjoy, that I'm like, no thanks. That would probably create more stress or anxiety in my life. And I know that's true for other people. As I said, I'm a massage therapist. And we'll think about massage as being something that for me is like a very decadent form of self-care. Lots of people enjoy it. And yet regularly I encounter people that the idea of going in and seeing someone for a massage makes them really uncomfortable. That wouldn't be a form of self-care that I would necessarily recommend for them. So this is going to be about you feeling into the practices, looking at your life, and finding ways that you can integrate the practices that resonate for you in a way that feels really nurturing. Okay. This idea, of being on the airplane and losing air pressure and needing to put our air mask on first, or this concept that we cannot give from an empty cup, is kind of the thought here around self-care. We need to take care of ourselves so that we can continue to show up in our community, in our home, at our work, wherever it is that you're placing your energy right now, so that you can continue to give from a healthy, nourished place within you. So about this idea between mindfulness and self-care and healing, just another example, I was just reading not too long ago this really great study that was done recently around people who were working through cancer and the correlation to mindfulness. They had a study group that was doing very simple, short but regular self-care or mindfulness activities, and then tracking outcomes and recovery times. And in the group that were regularly practicing some form of self-care, whatever that looked like to them, and regular forms of mindfulness, again, whatever worked for them, there were no like regulated things, the positive outcomes and recovery time was greatly improved with just these simple acts of self-care. So I kind of started touching on one thing there, that kind of the caveat to all of the research that's been done around self-care and mindfulness is that it needs to be something that you're practicing regularly. So as we move forward and we're looking at this, I want you to be thinking in terms of things that you can truly integrate into your life as a regular practice, as opposed to it being maybe something that you do this big elaborate thing for yourself, which I'm sure would be really luscious and supportive, but really to receive the benefits of self-care, it needs to be something that you can integrate into your life regularly. The good news is that most of the research that's been done, it can be 5 to 10 minutes, maybe 3 or 4 times a day. So we're not looking at something that you need to dedicate an hour of time to 7 days a week, but just something that you can commit to showing up for yourself, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, maybe 4 times a week. More so if you have the time and it's really resonating and you're feeling it, but maybe kind of look at that as like a minimum or as your goal when you're putting together practices that you want to embrace. Let's see, what else here? So as we're moving forward, like I said, I'm going to give you tons of ideas. I had so much fun putting this together. Really, we're going to be talking about ideas that you can integrate into almost every aspect of your life. Again, with no, like thought that you would need to do all of these, just so that you have lots of options that you can kind of create this magic formula for yourself. Okay, all right. The other thing that I would say about self-care too is, it's a little bit about the perspective that you bring to the practice. Most studies will say that to create a new habit that really lasts and is enduring in your life, you need to practice it regularly for anywhere from, some people will say 21 to 40 days. So my suggestion for you would be start simple, start with those minimum amounts of things that really resonate with you, but plan on trying to do it for maybe the next month. So that it really becomes a regular practice in your life. I've found that it tends to get easier as you go on. And if you're feeling that, then you can add more things in, or maybe do it more days of the week for sure. Okay. So we're talking about integrating this in. We're talking about small baby steps, keeping it simple. And we're really going to be talking about things that you can integrate into activities that you're already doing. So not only are we trying to find ways that you can, do short, meaningful self-care, but ways that you can incorporate it into things that you're already doing within your life. Okay. All right, so maybe let's just dive in. Let's just start talking about some of these things. So no better place to start than first thing in the morning, right? Things that you can do immediately upon waking up. One of the things that I like to do before I even get out of bed in the morning is to kind of visualize my day, right? Just kind of visualizing what I've got planned for the day, what I've got going on, maybe the things that I'm super excited about doing, or perhaps there's some things that like I have on my list to do that maybe I'm not so excited about doing, but they really need to get done. And sending some love, some energy, some positive energy, maybe even visualizing like how great it's going to be on the other side of like doing my taxes or something, not have that looming over my head anymore. Maybe visualizing like the positive of what it will be like on the other side of that. So waking up in the morning, kind of visualizing, laying out and creating positive energy and love around the activities that I do need to do for the day. Other things that we can talk about, kind of weaving some self-care and some mindfulness in around, and we're going to dive into all of these a little bit more. I'm just going to kind of run through the list, is like bathing rituals, meditation, breathing, tea, which is a big one for me, nourishing yourself or eating, or any other way that you nourish yourself. Yoga, whatever your health and beauty routine might be in the morning. Some aromatherapy, we'll touch on that a little bit. Music and mantra. And then also I want you to start integrating this idea that what you choose not to do can almost be as powerful an act of self-care as what you choose to do. So I'll give you an example here. There was definitely a time in my life, I have to admit, that right after my alarm went off in the morning, the first thing I was doing was grabbing my phone and checking my email, what's going on, right? And then I would get out of bed and I would start my day. And I've realized that that's not exactly how I want to choose to consciously start my day. So now I don't check my email. I set my alarm. I snooze once, at least once. And then without checking my email, I get up and I start making conscious decisions about my day. So something as simple as choosing something that we're going to not necessarily do. Another way that choosing things that we are not going to do, sometimes that can free up the time that you need for self-care. Sometimes we do things out of habit or because we feel like we should do them. And when we take a little bit closer look at our life, we start to realize that maybe those aren't things that we need or really have to do. And eliminating those things can sometimes eliminate a lot of stress or dread around doing something that we don't really feel called to do. And then just that little bit opens up this space for us to do something really beautiful and really nourishing for ourselves. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into bathing. I am a bath person. Unfortunately, I have not lived in a home for any length of time, maybe in the last like 17 or 18 years that actually had a bath. So although we're going to be talking about bath rituals or bath kind of self-care, we will also talk a little bit about how these can be adapted very easily into shower routines or even in the sauna. I have a sauna and sometimes we'll take some of these into the sauna for myself. Yeah. Okay. So before we even get into the bath, one thing that I really love to do that I'm going to share with you, if you guys aren't familiar with it, is dry brushing. I love this thing and they're really inexpensive. I don't remember exactly how much this one was, but we'll say like maybe $10, $12. And if you're not familiar with dry brushing, it's a really great practice. Essentially, it's exactly what it sounds like. You're going to take a dry brush and you're just going to brush the skin moving towards the heart. What this does, it does several things. It exfoliates your skin and makes your skin a lot softer, which is really lovely. If you're a person who does regular kind of hydration on the skin, it's really great to use the dry brush because it exfoliates the skin and then allows the skin to absorb whatever kind of oil or lotion or hydration you're offering to it. The real key about dry brushing is that it helps to move the lymph, which in your body. The lymph itself does not have like a particular organ that moves it through the body, so it can very easily become stagnated within the system, especially after a night's sleep. So moving the lymph with the dry brush helps the immune system, yay, immune health, right? But it also can be quite energizing and it helps the body to detoxify, both on the fact that it exfoliates the skin and that it helps to move the lymph towards the major glands. That's why we're moving it towards the heart, so that we get these benefits from it. So that's before we ever even start talking about getting in the bath. It really is a lovely way to kind of wake up and get the body moving and get the lymph moving in the mornings. So that's one practice that I would recommend. The other kind of nice benefit about it is that it can help reduce the appearance of like scars or cellulite in the skin as well. Added bonus there. Okay, oiling the skin. So really lovely practice that you can do for yourself. Dry brush and then moisturize. So if you're thinking about getting into the shower, what I would recommend, what I like to do for the skin is oiling, or in Ayurveda we would call it Abhyangar, which is really just oiling of the skin. You can use kind of any different oil that you would like. In Ayurveda, there are oils that you would choose based on your constitution. We don't have time to like really dive into that. Oils that I like to use, coconut oil is great. Avocado is really lovely and really rich, but any oil that you have on hand is fabulous. So you've exfoliated the skin. Now it's really ready to receive these oils, and then you can get into the shower. The only thing I would say on that is that if you put it all the way down to your feet, or even sometimes as it's rinsing off the body, it can make the tub just a little bit slippery, so be very careful there. But you will be amazed if you try this out once you get out of the shower, how soft and how hydrated your skin is. So kind of a lovely little simple spa thing that you can do there. The other thing that I really like to do whenever I'm doing this is to warm the oil before I use it. And you can just spend like a little extra time rubbing it in, giving yourself a self massage. You know, I think one of the things that's really coming up for people right now is with this physical distancing is missing that connection, missing being able to get hugs, missing being able to come in contact with other humans outside of your household. So showing up for yourself in that way and giving yourself a really lovely warm oil massage after dry brushing and getting in the shower can be a really nice way to connect with yourself and to bring that physical touch into your realm right now. Great. So let's see, what else do we have here to offer? So if you are lucky enough to have a bathtub in your home, yay you, things that can be really fun to do is adding gemstones or crystals or herbs, essential oils, salts, either Epsom salts or sea salts. You can add all kinds of different clays to the bath, and then setting the environment. You know, often we think of like getting up in the morning, taking a quick bath and going on about our day. But what if we slowed things down and let the taking a bath be a ritual in itself? What if we were very intentional, either by the stones and the energy that they had, or the herbs and the energy that they carried, that we brought into the bath or the shower, we'll talk about that, and kind of set an intention or called in a particular energy for the day. What if instead of just trying to get the oil out of our hair and trying to, you know, get ourselves clean, what if we were very intentional about connecting with the water element that we were stepping into, whether it was in a bath or the shower, and really calling in potential healing, things that we might want to release as we're washing and cleaning, thinking of it as a way to kind of clear things out of our emotional and energetic field and very intentionally reset and intentionally call in a specific energy to help us navigate the day. Maybe we know that we have, you know, something difficult, maybe like doing our taxes, or maybe a job interview, or it could be anything really. Maybe there's, you know, some strength or some self-confidence or patience that we need to call in to help navigate those things. Could we think about the taking a bath as more of a ritual, you know, releasing our self-doubt or releasing our irritation and calling in, either just through our intention or by the stones or the herbs that we choose, these strengths or these qualities that we would like to help kind of carry us through the rest of the day. So let's talk a little bit about, I mean, I can't go into this in a lot of detail, but if you're not familiar with plants and herbs and crystals, maybe I can just give you a couple of quick ideas for things that you might want to do. So rose quartz, it's one I really love to work with, is all about, you know, kind of matters of the heart, relationships. Bringing rose quartz into the bath or into the shower can be really good, especially if you're feeling very raw or very sensitive, which I find a lot of people are really coming up against that right now, just with all of the shifts that are happening and all of the unknowns that are happening right now. Carnelian is another really lovely one. It's kind of a reddish stone, and it's more about inspiration and creativity. So let's say you have a project, maybe you're creating a class or making a painting or doing something else creative that, you know, is a creative act for you, creating a new garden bed, you know, whatever that looks like. Maybe carnelian would be a really great one to bring into the bath with you or to set up in the shower with you, to just really spark that creativity and inspire you. Tiger's eye is a really good one as well. It's really helpful for grounding, which is another thing I'm finding that with all of the shifts that are happening for people right now, just feeling a little more grounded and rooted in your center can be really helpful and make a big difference in how you navigate the day. So tiger's eye would be a really good one. Citrine is a really good one. You know, right now, I think that a lot of people are coming up around some fears, financial fears, you know, work, maybe not getting enough hours. I know that, you know, in a lot of communities, thankfully not specifically here in our community, you know, people are struggling to get the things that they need from grocery stores and other places. So citrine would be a really good one to bring in, to call in, you know, to manifest what it is that you need in your life, be it abundance or patience or anything else, something that you want to manifest or call in. Other stones, ones that's kind of a local one that I really love to use is amethyst. Amethyst can be really great for protection. It can also be really good if you're finding that you're taking on a lot of other people's energy or a lot of other people's worries, fears, those kinds of things. Amethyst can be a really good one for just kind of setting your boundaries in a really nice way. You're working maybe and living with your housemates or your partner or your kids. Maybe you just need a little stronger boundaries between you and them. You know, establishing that new flow in your house. Amethyst can be a really lovely stone to work with. Or just some clear quartz. Clear quartz is really great too because it will amplify whatever your intention is. So if, you know, your intention was patience for the day and you just really wanted to kind of amplify that and move that all out into your energy field, you could just bring some clear quartz in and amplify any intention that you are carrying. So, and you're probably wondering, like, you can just bring these into the bath with you. Most tumbled kind of gemstones that are tumbled and polished are safe to bring into the bath, like actually into the water or to get wet. But if you're not positive, maybe check on that. Some of the more porous stones, you definitely need to be careful about bringing those into the bath. Some of them will kind of release different minerals and stuff or even dissolve in the water. So you would just want to put them kind of next to the bath, which leads into how we can integrate kind of this stuff into the shower, just bringing those stones in with you. Another thing that I like to do is set up a little muslin, you know, just kind of one of those simple cloth bags, little drawstring bags. And you can put herbs, because if you just bring your herbs into the bath too, they tend to get kind of stuck in the drain and can make a little bit of a mess, which is not ideal at the end of your beautiful bathing ritual to then have to be like dredging everything out of the bottom of your tub. But if you put all of those in like one of those little muslin tea bags or, you know, just any kind of a little cloth bag, then you're steeping yourself almost like a giant cup of tea in the energies of your stones and your herbs. In a shower, you can also just hang them from the top of the little shower spigot and have the water either run on it, kind of drawing those energies down onto you, or just being there near you as well. Let's think, what else? Essential oils. So here's a really love one. Like you can really get into your kind of witchy potion making, showing up for yourself in a really specific way with essential oils. Again, they all have kind of different qualities and different scents, and you can get really creative here. In the bath, pretty obvious, you can just put a couple of drops into the bath. In the shower, I like to use them a couple of different ways. I think my favorite one that I've kind of settled on is just putting a few drops on a washcloth and then bringing the washcloth in and kind of hanging it over if you have like a little water spigot where the water comes out in your tub, or even on the little handles, what do you call those? The little knobs where you adjust the water temperature. It gets wet enough there that it'll kind of diffuse into the shower itself without washing the essential oils down the drain so fast that you don't really get kind of the enjoyment of them. What else can we talk about here? Oh, so salts. We mentioned that a little bit. So Epsom salts or sea salts, adding those to a bath can be really lovely. Those you can add directly to the bath. They tend to dissolve. But what about if you have a shower? What I've done is kind of mixing the salts together with some herbs, or putting the salts in a bowl with a couple of drops of essential oil and a little bit of oil. You can make like a really lovely shower scrub. Again, if you're going to be adding oil to it, you want to be really careful just about the slipperiness factor that you might create in your shower. Just be mindful of that. Clays and seaweeds kind of work the same way. You can add those directly to the bath to create this just very customized, luxurious bath for yourself. Or just using the powder as a little bit of an exfoliation with a couple of drops of essential oil and a little water. You can make kind of a really nice body polish with those as well. Here's one of my favorites too, is create a Spotify playlist for this dreamy bath, shower, sauna experience. And it can look like whatever you want. Maybe it's really quiet meditation music, or sounds of nature, or maybe it's like really upbeat, empowering, feminine songs, or anything that resonates with you really and brings joy and happiness to your life. What else? Lighting candles, like really setting the mood here. What if we turned the lights down and we put out a couple of candles and gave ourselves permission to linger and to just enjoy all of these different elements that we're bringing in? Yeah. Okay, so lots of ideas of how you can treat yourself and take something that we do on a daily basis, right? Just waking up, taking a bath or a shower, and turn it into a real act of self-care, right? And these things could be made up ahead of time, really not add any extra time to your day, but you'll be amazed how different it feels. You go in with the intention of taking care of yourself, prioritizing yourself, and really treating yourself in a really beautiful way. Okay, so we kind of talked about, if you have only a shower, ways that you can incorporate some of these in. Another way to make a really simple, really lovely treat for the shower is to take a little bit of brown sugar and add a little bit of oil, coconut oil, avocado oil, whatever you have on hand. Again, be careful of the slipperiness factor, and maybe a couple of drops of essential oil makes a really beautiful body polish. If I'm going to use it outside of the bath, I prefer to use sugar over salt, because as you will find out, if you have even the tiniest little cut on your skin and you're doing kind of a body polish with salt, it stings. So just be mindful of that. Like, don't shave and then do a salt scrub. I think I've actually done that in that order before, and it didn't really make the most pleasant self-care ritual. We'll just say that. All right. Yeah, so, however you choose to integrate this, we are 2/3 water within, right? And being in the element of water is just really, really soothing to the body. And I don't know how familiar any of you may or may not be with Dr. Emoto's work. He did these really, really lovely studies. If you haven't heard of him, he wrote a book called Hidden Messages in Water. And you might want to look it up, because you kind of have to see these crystals. What he did is he took water that was in different states of being kind of polluted or kind of lifeless water, and he put them into jars and different things, and then put Post-it notes or attached words to them in different ways. Some were really beautiful healing words like love or gratitude, or I can't think of any other examples right now. And others he did nothing to at all. And then others, he put words that maybe aren't quite as uplifting. And then he put the water under a microscope and looked at the crystal formations and the formations that the water itself had formed. And it's really kind of amazing to see how our intention, or how beautiful words or words of healing affected this water and formed them into just imagine like the most beautiful snowflake kind of pictures, if you haven't seen it before. But I'd encourage you to go on and look at some of these pictures. So when we think of it that way, our body is 2/3 water. So even if we can't really incorporate these bathing techniques in, what if we just took a moment to say beautiful words to the water within us? You don't need anything at all, just a few minutes and a positive intention to just care for the waters within. Yeah. Great. Great. Okay. So maybe we'll move on. Great. So let's talk about beauty rituals. And when I talk about this, it's always a little bit, well, there's just a lot of connotations around that word in our society. I think of all of the advertisements that we're all exposed to every day, all these ideas around aging and what beauty looks like in our society. And certainly that's not what we're trying to dive into here. Beauty is whatever it means to you. It's about just taking care of yourself and feeling good about yourself so that you can put your best foot forward, right? So whether you're a person who spends a lot of time on facial routines or loves to play with lots of different hairstyles, not like me, I've had the same one for, I don't know, the last 20 years of my life, but wherever you are on that spectrum, you can still do some really fun and meaningful things within your routine. The first one that I practice regularly now, and I have to say, I feel like it's really made a big difference in how I show up in the world, is just telling yourself, I love you in the morning. I love you. I see you. You're beautiful. Like really seeing and acknowledging yourself in that way, not just showing up in the mirror to get XYZ done, but like really showing up and seeing yourself. And I know that that's not the case for a lot of people, and that even when I first started this ritual, I'm not sure that I fully believed it. It was something that had been suggested, and I was kind of doing it for the sake of doing it. I even started out with just a little kind of Post-it note to remind me to do it. But it was a very interesting process to kind of watch how that unfolded, saying things of beauty to myself. And over time, that it really started to become a truth that I carried within myself. So now every day I tell myself that I love myself, and I would encourage you to do the same. Another thing that can be really beautiful is something that's called eye gazing. You can read a lot about this online. There's lots of suggestions on ways to do it. The simplest form that I learned is just gazing into your own eyes in the mirror, just silently for 5 to 10 minutes. And in the beginning, it's going to feel really uncomfortable. It's going to feel awkward. But it is such a beautiful practice to meet yourself and to really see yourself. I will say I've done this many, many times, and every time feels really different. Sometimes it is hilarious. I'm just thinking, I'm sitting here staring at myself in the mirror, and this is hilarious. But I walk away with so much joy in my heart. It feels really good. There have been other times that I've done this practice, and I've cried from sadness, cried from joy, cried from grief, all kinds of different emotions that I've processed through, and lots of different experiences in between. It's one that I find that people have a little bit of resistance to, but is a really, really powerful experience. You can practice this with other people too, where you just do eye gazing. But kind of the theory behind it, I don't know if you ever saw that commercial that was going around a couple years ago. But they were having people do eye gazing for, I don't know if it was 5 or 10 minutes. And they were talking about the love that developed between the two people that were involved in the experiment that they were doing. And that's really what we're trying to cultivate here in doing eye gazing by yourself alone in the mirror too. It's about cultivating that self-love, seeing yourself through the eyes of love, through this practice of eye gazing. It sounds really simple, but I'm telling you, it's really, really powerful. And there's not really a right or a wrong way to do it. Like I said, in the simplest form, you're just really staring into the reflection of your own eyes in the mirror. Some places talk about kind of staring more into your left eye the left being the more receptive eye of the two. There are others that, talk about, dancing with yourself in the mirror, and there's kind of all different ways to practice it. I would say maybe just start with gazing into your own eyes and then go from there. Maybe you'll feel called to work with it in some other specific way. Another really great, I'm sort of in love with this one, self-care mindfulness ritual that I've started doing is a Kanza wand. This also comes from Ayurvedic practices, and there's kind of a lot of ancient teachings around it. But this is a really lovely, they're not super inexpensive. I'll say this may be one of the things I'll suggest that you would need to invest in, but I don't think it's too bad. I want to say that this costs maybe like $30-ish. I've had this one for maybe 3 or more years, and it's not something that I should ever have to replace. So it's, a tool that will last forever. And so what it is it's a morning routine that I do. I just take a little oil in my hands. And of course, you can spend a lot of oil, specific facial oils and stuff too, but I just make a really simple oil with jojoba with a little bit of lemon in it, or a little bit of rose. Sometimes I make it with that too. And you just want to put a little bit of toner and oil, or oil and just a tiny bit of water, and kind of emulsify it in your hands. And then put the oil all over your face and your neck. And then you use the tool to kind of make these really sweet little half moon loops under your eyes. You can do loops all the way down the face, or kind of little circles. I tend to get a lot of tightness in my jaw and can sometimes have, a little temple tension here. And you can use this tool. Not only are you doing this really lovely facial massage on your face, this is a really lovely act of self-care, but you can also really get into these spots here in the jaw and in the temples to really loosen up the tension that's there. It's been really lovely for me. But yeah, this is a really fun one to just kind of take your morning routine or your evening routine for that matter, and just sort of up the game, spend a little extra time really taking care of yourself. Make it part of a home facial routine that you do for yourself, if not every day. Maybe it's how you treat yourself on Saturday mornings. You get to sleep in a little bit and then do a little mini facial for yourself. Use your Kanza tool. Make a home facial with just stuff that you have in your refrigerator. Let's think about that. Things that are really great for that. Avocados, mashed up avocados. Honey, you can do a really great thing. Oh, I'm trying to think of the name of the woman's book. I've had it for ages. It was one of the first herbal books that I had. But she just puts honey on the face and does what she calls a honey pat. The honey starts to get a little bit sticky, and so it exfoliates the skin while it's nourishing. It's kind of a fun way to add something into your facial routine. What other things look really good? Let me think about this. Oh, egg whites are great. Bananas, organic yogurt. You can make a really kind of lovely yogurt facial, even combining a few of these ingredients. Strawberries, oats, green tea. I'm sure everybody's seen the kind of spa pictures where people have a couple pieces of cucumber on their eyes. You could do a little Kanza oil cleansing massage. Mash up some avocados or some honey and banana with a little touch of yogurt in it, and chill a couple of cucumbers, put those on your eyes, and have a full home spa day. I mean, let's really top it off, and throw your socks in the dryer and your robe in the dryer. And once you get everything on, wrap yourself in this really lovely, warm fluffiness and just relax for 10 minutes. Great. a really lovely home spa addition to your self-care routine. Probably not something that I myself could make time for every day, but like I said, something to do on a Saturday or Sunday morning to just treat yourself, give yourself a little extra love during these times. Let's see, what else do we have here? Adding some essential oils to your morning routine can be another really nice way to set the energy. Maybe you're feeling really ramped up. Use some essential oils that are really calming. You can just apply them in some simple carrier oil. Another idea that I kind of like is that I sometimes will put it on my brush or on my comb and put it in my hair. And then kind of throughout the day, as you know, I'm messing with my hair, I get these lovely little scents of either really relaxing or really energizing, or whatever the mood or the intention that I chose the oils for the day are. Great. You know, another thing to consider about like our morning beauty or health or wellness routines is a little bit about making the space for it. You know, I think that's one of the things, we'll talk about this a little bit more, but that I find comes up in self-care is it just about owning or claiming that space for yourself, that time for yourself, and making yourself and your wellness a priority. So one of the ways that you can actively do this is maybe setting up a special space that you do your morning routine, no matter how simple or complicated that morning routine is. You know, I think of growing up, and even still to this day, my mom on her bathroom counter has the same one that she had when I was a little kid, little tray. It's kind of a mirrored tray, and she has sort of all of her wellness, beauty, supplements, kind of all of that stuff sort of laid out for herself. I have a friend that's got this really great antique kind of dressing table with this sweet little stool that she sits in. And once again, it's just about giving yourself permission to take up space and creating that environment that prioritizes your needs and makes your morning routine, whatever that might look like, kind of a sacred act of self-care. You know, you can add little things to that, you know, table, you know, favorite little handmade bowls to put your rings in, or maybe like a really sweet tin, or a wooden box, or a glass jar, or something that you found that you just fell in love with, to put, I don't know, Q-tips or a blush brush or your hairbrush or your toothbrush or whatever it is that you use, to just kind of create that space for yourself. A lovely place to keep maybe a couple of the herbs to remind you to bring them into the bath, or stones that you're working with at that time. Okay, I've been talking, I feel like, a ton. I would love to kind of hear from each of you. We'll do this through the kind of question and answer area. Looking at your own morning routine, kind of, you know, from the time that you wake up in the morning through maybe what we've talked about here, like taking a bath, taking a shower, getting ready, whatever that might look like for you, getting dressed. What are things, both maybe that we've mentioned, that you're like, oh, wow, that would be really easy and would really elevate my morning routine, really feel like a sacred act of self-care, that you're thinking you might integrate? Or maybe what's something that you currently do in the morning that you're realizing isn't really feeding or nourishing you, that you could let go of to make space for something else. Even if it's not something that, you know, we've talked about yet, maybe the thing hasn't popped up for you yet, but just something that you could let go of that could create the space or the opportunity or the opening for an act of self-care. So if you'll just go into the question and answers little thing here, or into the chat, I can see them both, and just put one thing in there that I've mentioned so far that you're thinking about potentially integrating into your morning routine, or something that you're currently doing that you feel like you could let go of. You're realizing it just doesn't serve you anymore. That would create that opening. Okay, so I'll pull that up. Yeah. Great. Beautiful. Thanks. Yeah, the eye gazing, right? I know that it sounds like one of those maybe overly simplified things. It can really, really be powerful. Yeah, eye gazing is a really great one. Right? Making tea each morning. Yeah, and we're going to talk about that just a little bit more, and ways that you can really like up your tea game into really making it like a really beautiful ritual. So yeah, tea is a lovely one. I'm an herbalist. I have tons of plant material on hand at all times, things that I grow, things that I have here. So yeah, Tea is a big one for me. Yeah. Great. Anybody else? Wonderful. All right. Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and just back in. If you are still working on that or something comes up for you later, feel free to jump in. Oh, look, here's another one. Yeah. Oh, a place that I would recommend for getting crystals. Yeah, that's a tricky one right now because I tend to be a person who really wants to see and feel and touch my stones before I buy them. They're really hard for me to buy online. I feel like stones carry a really specific energy, and I like to be able to interface with that energy before making a purchase. With that being said, like I have some little bags of some like just really small gemstones that you could start working with. I think I've got a couple different sets, like a wellness set and maybe a chakra alignment set that I have here on the shelf at town that you could get. There's a little place up in Thunder Bay, honestly, that I kind of like to explore. There's two different places on Algoma up there. I'm trying to think of the names of them. One is kind of like a witchy store, and the other one's called something's Mojo. I can't think, something that rhymes with mojo. It's like Ho-Ho's Mojo, but that's not the name of it. Don't look for that. And then there's a really sweet place. I can't think of the name of it, unfortunately, right off the top of my head, but that's on Superior Street, I think, in Duluth. So it's a little bit further down Superior Street, and it's on the left-hand side there. They have some nice, like fairly inexpensive gemstones to start working with them. Oh, and then there's the little shop. Is it in Silver Bay or Two Harbors? If you're just looking for, you know, small little tumbled gemstones to work with, they have, you know, some stuff that you can start working with. There's a really great place in Stillwater. I'm not sure if they do any online stuff. That would be the other thing to explore. I'm pretty sure it's called Jewelweed. I get a lot of my kind of larger stones from them. She just does a really lovely job of curating. She goes and hand picks them from you know, stone shows kind of around the country. She does a really nice job of picking things out. I find lots of stuff in there that I really love. I have to be careful when I go in there. I have to set myself a very strict budget whenever I go into her shop. Anyway, so there's a couple of ideas. You know, at this point, there's tons and tons of online options. You know, for starting out with just a few small stones, you might just be able to find some inexpensive small sets, and maybe I wouldn't be as particular about those. Yeah. Okay. All right. Great. So let's go ahead and dive back in. Oh, is there another one here? It's hard for me to tell if there's a new, look at this. She knows the name of it. Wojo's Mojo and Mystic Garden are the name of those two shops. Thank you for sharing those. Yeah, Mystic Garden and Wojo's Mojo. Yeah, I knew it wasn't Ho-Ho's. Something like that though, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward. So I've mentioned aromatherapy in a couple of different places here. I'm using it in the bath or the shower, or incorporating it in your morning routine. So let's talk about that a little bit, because I know, you know, essential oils are something that I use, you know, every single day in my practice. I've been working with them for years and years, and that's probably the case for maybe a few of you, or you know, maybe you're somewhere on the spectrum of knowing a little bit or nothing at all about essential oils. But let's just kind of touch base on that just the tiniest bit. We don't have a lot of time to spend on it, but oils that you can really easily, you know, incorporate in. So the one thing I would say about essential oils is you just don't want to use them directly on the skin. Most of them are a little bit strong to apply kind of straight out of the bottle. You want to dilute them in some way. So you can use any kind of a carrier oil. You know, you can make a really simple body spray or a mist with just water or witch hazel, the tiniest bit of like glycerin or vitamin E, or even a couple of drops of like oil. It just gives it a little more staying power, and some essential oils in it. Put it in a spray bottle, shake it up, and you can make this really lovely room mist or a body spray. You can also just dilute it in a little bit of oil and make a personal scent. Use it in any of the other ways we talked about. So, you know, what is the intention that you're using it with? What is the energy that you want to create? So maybe you're trying to recreate a really relaxing bath experience for yourself. Things like lavender, orange, chamomile, geranium, you know, there's tons of them out there, but you know, those would be ones that maybe would be really relaxing. On the other hand, you know, maybe it's something that you wanted to pair with the tiger's eye that we talked about to create something really grounding. When I think of grounding, I think of kind of the more woodsy sense. Cedar wood is maybe one of my like go-tos for grounding, but other ones would be like sandalwood, rosewood, patchouli is good. Maybe you're feeling a little sluggish in the morning, and maybe what you want to add to your shower or to your morning routine is something a little more energizing to kind of get you going for the day. Things that might be good for that would be maybe like lemon, peppermint, cinnamon, grapefruit, or some lovely combination of those. Maybe you've got, you know, a class to work on, a paper to write. Maybe you're doing school or work from home right now and having some difficulty staying really focused. I've been finding that I've been having kind of a little bit of a low energy point midday. So things that could be really energizing and help you with focus and clarity, like rosemary is really good for this. Basil's good for this. Peppermint and lemon are also really good. There's a nice combination that you can get kind of that minty smell with some rosemary that I really like myself, but play around with what works for you. Maybe you're feeling a little raw, or maybe you're working through some feelings of sadness or loss around what's currently going on in the world or something specific in your life. Things that can be kind of nurturing to the heart. I really like rose. It's kind of my go-to. Some people don't like rose at all. I have people say, oh, that reminds me of my grandmother. I remember having that sensation. I remember thinking that is a terrible smell that my grandmother is wearing, but it's got a really sweet, supportive energy for the heart, and I've kind of fallen in love with it, if I'm honest. But other ones, if rose doesn't speak to you, neroli is a really nice one, and somehow feels really luxurious to me. It's got this mix of being kind of floral and a little citrusy. It's a really lovely one. Jasmine's another one I really love. Sometimes pairing kind of jasmine with that more like orange, tangerine, lemongrass kind of smell too. You'll get that kind of decadent floral and citrusy note. Melissa is also a really nice one for the heart. Or maybe for meditation. Maybe you want to be a little more introspective. Ooh, that came out all wrong. Words sometimes, right? You want a little more introspection, you know, turning within, tuning into what you're feeling. Things that I find that are really good for that. Vetiver is one of my favorite. I like the combination of vetiver and rose together. Vetiver really like brings kind of a woodsiness to the softness of the rose. But again, sandalwood's really good here. Frankincense is nice. Lang Lang can be really good for kind of that more going within kind of meditative sort of state. Yeah. Okay. So, and there's tons more out there, you know, play around with it. We've got tons of resources online right now. You can kind of go in and even just type in, you know, essential oils for meditation. You'll get these long lists and recommendations of ones that pair really nice together. You'll find if you explore essential oils a little bit, you'll come up with your own favorites and your favorite combinations that you really like. And, you know, even that in itself can just be a really lovely act of self-care. I was going to mention this in the tea part, but maybe we'll just dive into it a little bit here. That act of slowing down enough to really tune in to how you're feeling in the moment, listening. You know, how am I feeling this morning? You know, I'm feeling a little tired. I'm feeling maybe a little sad. Maybe I'm feeling like really joyful. And then showing up for yourself to meet that energy with essential oils or acts that either elevate and lift that feeling within you, kind of mirroring it, or potentially help you navigate through that and bring in a little more softness or a little more joy or a little more energy, you know, to kind of create the state of balance maybe that you want to move towards. Yeah. Okay, so yoga is going to be the next thing that I talk about. I am a yoga teacher. I absolutely love the practice. It has helped me navigate so many things in life. And for those of you that are on the call that have tried yoga before and you're like, I'm tuning out, she said yoga. Just hold off before you run away or tune out too much. Because I think that we tend to have this idea that maybe we've tried it, or maybe we've seen it on YouTube, or maybe a friend's talked to us about it, and it's not our jam. We tend to think of yoga or meditation or lots of things in these kind of little boxes, that's what it is. I will tell you, when this kind of shift just first started happening for us, as much as I love yoga, I would roll my yoga mat out, and all I could really muster was laying on my yoga mat, closing my eyes, doing a little scan of my body, and maybe checking with my breath a little bit. I think it was maybe like 3 or 4 days of that early on in the not knowing, uncertainty of it all. And yet somehow just laying on my mat, closing my eyes, coming back to myself, what I was feeling, acknowledging, accepting that, breathing into it was what I needed to get myself through. So when I say yoga, I'm not necessarily saying, roll out your mat, drop into an hour-long class. Maybe that's not where you're at right now. Maybe it's more like rolling out your mat and just taking that time to lay down and be still for 5 minutes. Maybe you don't own a yoga mat, and that's fine too. Maybe your yoga is laying down on the floor with your legs up the wall, just with your eyes closed and just being in stillness and in silence for 5 minutes. Maybe there's one yoga pose that you do actually really like, or maybe it's not so much that you like it, but that it feels really good in your hips, or it feels really good in your shoulders or your neck, or wherever it is, whatever pose you're working with. For me, yoga is the process of slowing down and being in the present moment. We're going to talk about this maybe a little bit more in the meditation section too. It's about slowing down and just being present with yourself and what is. And I think, more than anything, that is a huge act of self-care. Just stepping outside of the rush and the bustle and the to-do list and what everybody else needs from you, and making the time to just be. So whether yoga resonates with you or not, perhaps, exploring, maybe it's not yoga, maybe it's some other form of movement, whatever that feels like. Maybe it's exercise. Maybe the way that moving your body feels best is to really go for it. Maybe you're a runner, really, truly any kind of movement that gets you out of your head and into your body so that you can connect and be present with the emotions or the feelings or the experiences that you're having, can be a real act of self-care. I've been going on daily walks. We'll talk about, the benefits of nature a little later too. But again, just getting in my body and moving. We have a tendency to kind of store emotions and things that we're feeling in our bodies and get in our brains about it and start looping them in our brains. And really sometimes what's needed is the stillness, the going within, being present, right? We have a tendency to distract and to distance ourselves. So sometimes the act of self-care is getting still, getting quiet, and being present with ourselves. Sometimes the act of self-care is getting out of the loop that we're in, or the stagnant energy or the place that we're in, and getting out and moving and cycling that through and letting it release and move through our system in the way that energy is intended to, so that we can come back renewed, recentered, and then go about our day. So, we can kind of translate that, what started as yoga, and maybe this concept that you had about what yoga is or what yoga looks like, to it really just being an act of showing up for yourself in the way that you need in that moment, whether it's stillness or movement. Yeah. All right. Let's see. How are we doing on time? Okay. Wow. It's 6:39 already. I tell you, this is why I did an outline for myself. I start talking about things that I enjoy or that I'm passionate about, and time seems to just completely fly by. Okay, so let's go into tea, since somebody brought that up in the question and answer section. So like I said, I'm an herbalist. I have tons of plant material on hand at all times. Maybe that's not the case for you, but it doesn't need to be the case to really create this ritual around tea and it being an act of self-care. You know, in a lot of countries, the ones that come to mind for me are like Japan or India or Morocco. You know, they've really elevated this process of having tea alone or together to like a really gorgeous and sometimes very elaborate ceremony. You can make this as elaborate as you want, or it can be as simple as having your favorite mug and some store-bought tea that you just really love and taking the time to slow down. Again, right? Tea is hot. You can't just sit down and gulp it down and go about your day. You know, it almost requires that you slow down and that you get mindful about how quickly you drink it so that you don't burn yourself. So if you're not currently a tea drinker, you know, just inviting in this process of maybe having tea in the morning, or afternoon tea has been one for me. It's kind of my mid-afternoon, just reset. You know, I've been going about the day doing these things. Let's reset and refocus, reprioritize how I want to spend the rest of my energy and what I want to focus on for the rest of the day. It's a really lovely, just kind of midday. Let's take a sacred pause and reset, right? So, you know, we did talk about, though, when we were talking about essential oils, about this act of listening, checking in, and then responding, and how that can be a really beautiful way to show up for yourself. So I do this a lot with teas, right? This checking in. How am I this morning? Like really and truly, not, you know, the automated fine or I'm good. Like, how am I really and truly? And whenever I find an emotion, you know, I kind of try to dig in, get a little curious underneath that. Like, what else am I feeling? What else is present? And then this really, you know, great way of self-care is that I then go to my herb cabinet and I pick out herbs once again, either to elevate and amplify that emotion that I'm feeling because I want to feel more of it, or perhaps that might help balance out that emotion and help me find a little more harmony. And you don't have to have a lot of herbs to do this. You know, the co-op has a few things in the bulk section. They're inexpensive. And so you can just buy yourself a little bag of, let's say, some loose leaf chamomile, maybe some rose petals, maybe some peppermint. What else is really good? I love lemongrass. It's a fun one to play with in dried lemongrass in teas. Hibiscus can be a really good one. And again, you know, each of these plants is going to carry its own energy, but you don't have to be an herbalist. It's not about picking exactly the right one. It's more about this process of asking, listening to yourself, and then showing up with a gift, right? Showing up with a gift for yourself in this act of self-love. So let's talk about the herbs just a little bit. Again, not that you need to know the healing properties or the volatile oils or anything specific about stuff. It's more about how the plant feels to you and if it feels like the right thing for you. But let's say, you know, maybe I was feeling a little bit anxious or about something that was coming up that day and I was looking for something that was maybe a little calming. I might make myself a tea with some rose petals or some chamomile. Lemon balm is a really nice one, although I will say it makes me a little bit sleepy, so I have to be careful with that one first thing in the morning. Maybe on the other side of things, maybe I'm having a really sluggish morning and I need some energizing and I'm not doing caffeine. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but I'm making tea. So I'm going with herbs. Lemongrass is a great one here. It's super uplifting for me, along with a little bit of peppermint or some spearmint can be kind of a fun mix. Warming ones. These are nice in the winter, like licorice, cinnamon, clove, just to have that kind of warm, fuzzy, showing up for myself feeling. Something that's really refreshing. Maybe, again, lemongrass can be nice here, maybe with some hibiscus. I love hibiscus tea, both hot and cold. Maybe I'm feeling a little raw and not necessarily wanting to change how I'm feeling, just show up for myself with some heart energy. Rose petals, again, are kind of my favorite here, although jasmine flowers can be nice, chamomile can be nice, anything actually that feels supportive. Those are just a few ideas. And then, you know, you can also go in a different direction and maybe think about things that support a particular function within the body. So a lot of people are under a lot of stress right now. So I've been using Tulsi or holy basil. It helps support the adrenals in the body. I've been using that kind of as a base for a lot of my herbal teas right now. So I'll take some Tulsi, and then one of my favorites recently has been adding rose petals. Yeah, you guessed it. A Tulsi rose tea is really nice, but you know, anything. Tulsi is kind of a nice, like a green, earthy flavor, but it doesn't overpower the other flavors. So like Tulsi and lemongrass could be really fun together. Tulsi and chamomile in the evening could be really lovely. You know, just play around here a little bit without having to have a lot of herbal background or knowledge about the plants specifically, but you know, calling in those plant energies to help nurture yourself, you know, and showing up for yourself in this act of self-care again, right? Other, you know, kind of systemic sort of things would be like hawthorn is a really lovely one for the heart. If you're feeling just maybe a little depleted too, Tulsi is a really nice one. Again, sometimes I'll pair that like with some nettle or maybe even a little alfalfa, just to get that really nourishing kind of feeling for myself. Raspberry leaf can also be another really lovely one, especially for the ladies. Yeah, what are your favorites? What kind of teas do you have in your herbal cabinet right now? Things that you've been feeling drawn to, things that you maybe are like, oh yeah, I do really like that. I've forgotten about that. That would be a great one to add into my morning routine. And just type that into the chat box or the Q&A, either one, whichever works for you. Either kind of teas that maybe or plants that might be speaking to you, or maybe even going back to, in this section, we've also kind of talked about aromatherapy, maybe oils that you might have in the back of your cabinet or something. You're like, oh yeah, I want to get that one. Or yoga. Maybe you have not been in a yoga practice for a while, but you remember going to that class that one time and there being this one pose, child's pose, you loved it. Yeah, I could totally do that one for 5 minutes and just connect with my breath. So type some of that into the Q&A. Let's just check in and see where everybody's at. Make sure you're all still out there. Oh yeah, hibiscus tea, right? Hot or cold. If that's not one that you have tried cold in the summer, one of my favorite things to do is taking some sparkling water and then brewing some really strong hibiscus tea and adding some hibiscus tea to the sparkling water with like a squeeze of lemon or a squeeze of lime. And that in itself, right? Just taking the time in the middle of the day to say, I want to do something to take care of myself. You know what? I'm going to brew some hibiscus tea right now. I'm going to let it sit all day and get really strong. And this afternoon, I'm going to take a break from gardening or taking my class or working. And I'm going to sit down and have this really lovely glass of sparkling hibiscus water and stare out the window and just be silent and be still for the next 10 minutes. You know, that in itself, really simple things can be a really lovely act of self-care and something you can really easily integrate into your day, right? Refresh tea. Yeah, that's a nice one. Deep breathing. Yeah, hand on your heart, hand on your belly, listening into, feeling into your breath. You know, we're going to talk about meditation a little bit later, maybe not tonight. Maybe it'll have to be in tomorrow's section, but you know, that in itself, just getting quiet, getting still, enjoying a cup of deep breathing tea, connecting with the breath, that in itself can be a really lovely act of self-care. And yeah, licorice and mint, that's a really nice combination too. You know, I have to say that licorice never used to be one of my favorite teas. It wasn't one that I really loved, but doing it in that combination with the licorice and the mint together, I really do like that one for sure. Yeah. All right, beautiful. Well, thanks everyone for sharing. So let's see here. We have about 10 more minutes before we want to wrap up tonight. I think what we're going to do is what I was going to share with all of you, as long as we were talking about teas, is something that I've been doing for kind of a daily self-care ritual for myself. I talked about how I've been kind of taking tea breaks in the afternoon and just making some time to slow down for myself. Here's another little idea that I'm just going to throw out there, if it resonates with you or not. Something I've been working with is I have 2 different sets. One of them that was just gifted to me recently of they're kind of herbal divination cards. So if you're not familiar with divination cards, they're, you know, these sets of cards, they all have different themes, and certainly you don't need plant themed ones to do this. This is just how I've been working. So they'll have, you know, different plants that are in it. A lot of the ones that are in this other deck, which is the Herb Crafters deck, are medicinal kind of plants, or really a lot of stuff that you can just find like on your spice cabinet, you know, cinnamon, cardamom, those kind of things, vanilla. And I've been drawing a card, like sitting down, getting quiet, putting my cards out, setting my intention for, you know, why I'm drawing a card, or just saying, you know, I want to create this space. This is an act of self-care, of being mindful. And I just want to draw a card that has a message or has a reflection for me. And then if it's a plant that I have either in my kitchen cabinet or in my herb cabinet, I've been going and then incorporating that plant into my tea. It's been so fun. The one that came up for me most recently was cinnamon. So I added some cinnamon into my tea. I'm trying to think, lemongrass came up not too long ago. So I use lemongrass as the base, and then I just kind of go through my cabinet and find other things that feel like it would be really great with the lemongrass. And it's been such a fun process. Again, it doesn't take a lot of time. It's just on my afternoon tea break. I set, you know, the 3 extra minutes to just get still, to get quiet, to pick a card, and then it just takes this little afternoon tea and creates some spaciousness around it, some intention around it, and it feels really nourishing. It brings me a lot of joy, right? And that's, we talked about, you know, that's the real testament of if it's an act of self-care you should or could continue doing, is, does it bring joy? Do you enjoy it? So really, you know, self-care can look like absolutely anything. Does it bring joy? Is it uplifting? Does it feel nourishing? That's really kind of the way I take the temperature on my self-care things. Okay, so I think instead of diving into another section and trying to rush it, or potentially going over, which anyone that knows me knows that I have a tendency to kind of do, I think that maybe we'll just kind of start wrapping up here for the day. If anybody has any questions about things that we've talked about, go ahead and start typing that into the chat or the Q&A. I'll spend a couple of minutes answering any of those questions before we close. But something I would like to kind of give to you is, like, with all the stuff that we've talked about today, before we meet tomorrow, I'd like you to just spend a little time thinking about some of these practices, or maybe something that one of these practices has inspired, right? Something maybe connected or completely different. It's just got your mind churning, that you are thinking about integrating into your self-care routine, your new self-care practice, right? And remember that sometimes it's just as important what we choose not to do or what we say no to. Saying no in itself to things that don't align with you is a huge act of self-care. So let's think about it both in terms of what's something that you might want to add, either from all the stuff that we've talked about, or something inspired just by us being in this space together and talking about self-care. And what's something maybe in your life that you're currently doing that doesn't feel super aligned, that maybe you would like to let go of to create the space and the opportunity to bring in these kind of self-care. Remember, as you're thinking about this, I want you to be realistic. I have a tendency to be one of those people who gets really inspired about things and I want to do it all. And then I completely bog myself down with these like hours of things that I think I'm going to somehow squeeze into my day. And it becomes more of a chore, another thing on my to-do list, than a true act of self-care. So my recommendation is don't go crazy. Find one, maybe two simple things that you can integrate into your life. Maybe something that would add 5-10 minutes tops that you could potentially embrace and start doing 3 or 4 times a week. Because remember, it's something that we want to be practicing regularly, that you could just really bring in. I want you to think about that because I'd love for us to do a little share tomorrow before we dive into some new practices. Maybe get inspired by ideas we had not thought about. I find that listening to what other people are thinking about often sparks new ideas for me. So I'd like for you to do that this evening. And, the other thing to think about is, what time of day might work best for you. I have never been a morning person. And, this idea of routine maybe is something that I used to push back against. It wasn't until I did my Kundalini yoga training, I don't know exactly how long ago, we'll say 7 years ago maybe, that we, as part of our training, we needed to do something that's called sadhana. It's a daily practice, and we needed to do it to graduate. We needed to do it for 40 days. And sadhana needs to get done between 5 and 7 in the morning. For a morning person, that was pretty daunting. The practice of sadhana, traditionally it's several hours of practice, but at a minimum, it's supposed to be 11 minutes a day, every day for 40 days. And so when I started leaning into this sadhana practice, I started to realize that routine actually worked quite well for me. I'm sure you've heard about this with like little children and infants about how having a routine provides a sense of security. It also really helps our nervous system to regulate. So what I've been finding, kind of being at home and being out of what I didn't even recognize as a routine, but instead of having a daily routine, is I really needed some routine in my life. And I've been finding that having these practices or having, classes that I'm doing or having some kind of routine in my life has been really calming and soothing to my nervous system. So the other thing I would ask you to think about a little bit is what time of day or in what ways could you integrate these things to kind of create that routine over the next 30 days to try to bring this idea that self-care would be something regular that you'd be doing into your life. And what would that look like? Does it mean you're going to set your alarm 15 minutes early? Does it mean you're going to stay up 15 minutes late? Maybe you're going to take a little longer lunch break. I don't know. I don't know what it looks like. Everybody's life looks so different. And, even looks maybe for some of us really different right now than what it did 2 months ago. So maybe thinking about it a little bit in those terms of, how and where would you want to integrate it right now? Maybe your routine on the weekend is really different than your routine during the week. What maybe would it look like on the weekend? Can you be a little more indulgent then? Or is family home and in the household and that's really family time? Do you want to kind of keep it more towards something that you do for yourself midweek, midday? Just think a little bit about the timing and where and when you might want to integrate these practices for yourself as well. Anything else? Yeah, so tomorrow I think I would like for us to maybe open class by doing just a little bit of sharing around that. So I'd like each of you to think about that. And then I'm just gonna pop into Q&A and chat here. If anybody has any questions about anything that came up today, you wanna pop in the Q&A before we sign out. Oh, here's one, peppermint oil on my forehead and on my temples. Yeah, that can be a really nice one. Make sure that you dilute it. It can be a little bit strong, especially on the temples, right around the eyes. But yeah, that's a really great one. It can help relieve headaches, but also like whenever I'm starting to feel a little groggy, just a little bit of peppermint oil on my temples or on the back of my neck or something can be really uplifting. Yeah, really uplifting. That's a nice one to share for sure. Yeah, Great. Okay, well, that's all that I see in there. If you think of anything else, write it down or shoot me an email if you want, and I will answer those, or we'll answer them first thing tomorrow before we dive into some new practices. Maybe even think about trying one out tonight or tomorrow morning. And I will look forward to seeing all of you again tomorrow evening at 5:30. And we've got lots of other great stuff to share. In fact, I'm gonna have to think about my timing a little bit to make sure we can get through all of it. Okay, great, lovely. It was really great to have all of you here and to get to connect in this way, and potentially all be bringing in some new self-care ideas. Be well, take good care of yourselves tonight, and I will see you all tomorrow. Ciao, take care.